All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, we have ourselves a revelation on our hands. I am a Penn State Nittany Lions fan, and I just watched Penn State lose 23-20 to Iowa, right? Shocking? No. Going into this game, I had absolutely, literally, I thought it would be a coin flip if who would win this game. They're both similar types of teams, and it's in Iowa, but Penn State always stood a fighting chance, and they had a 14-3 lead at one point, but we'll get to that later. But with that being said, Penn State, they lost this game 23-20. And yes, Sean Clifford did not play, and like I said, I'll get to that later. But if there is one thing that I think could have changed the aspect of this game the most, it's not our backup quarterback and the way he throws the ball. It's not Sean Clifford not even being in there. But you know what it is? I'll say you an example. So here I am, right? I'm kind of tall for the camera, so I have to bend a little bit. But here I am, okay? I am in an 85,000 people capacity stadium in a college football game where there are two top 5 teams. And I have the audacity to clap for the football to snap it. I don't say hike loudly, I clap, okay? That's an issue when you do it once. But the fact that you're coaching still, after so many times, at least 15 false starts, I swear. I saw every drive. There was a false start. And don't get me wrong, that is okay to happen every once in a while. But the culprit is whenever you're coaching and your quarterback, who doesn't know what else to do and is just scared of the environment it is in, claps for the ball. The center's not going to hear it half the time. You tell me, if there's 85,000 people screaming at you, are you going to hear this every single time? You're not. Especially with gloves in, suctioning the sound of the clap. You're not going to hear that. But that's okay. You know, that whenever we seem to have momentum without Sean Clifford in the game, every single time, false start, offense. Why? Clap. You know, why are we clapping so much? We're not the fans. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. That's all we were doing. That's literally all we were doing. We had absolutely no... We had the audacity to sit there and do that for 2 quarters. That makes me upset because I'm okay with losing this game without Sean Clifford in it. With Sean Clifford in it, I am not okay. And you can argue that we could have won, but I'm not going to say we would have won or we wouldn't have won, because that is not that will never be proven. Okay, that will never be proven. So I'm not going to use that as an argument. But what I will say is our coaching did not change this. Why? That led to false starts because some people heard it, some people didn't. The center has to hope that he heard the clap because he's obviously not going to know definitively if he heard it or not. And God forbid if he thought he heard a clap and didn't and snapped the ball, it's going above his head because he's not ready for the snap, and Iowa might get the football and we're going to have a huge loss. So that is very frustrating, but that's not even the point to this video. But my goodness, why are you so happy? You keep clapping your hands like you're so happy. You listen to the song, you happy, you know, clap your hands. Why? Listen to something else. Why is that on your Apple Music and Spotify playlist? That's a 5-year-old song, but we were reenacting it on a football field with a bunch of 20-plus-year-old players. That is absolutely spectacular. But that's not the point of this video. So that's the only rant I have, because the rest of it, pretty calm, right? Now, Sean Clifford got injured. So Penn State's obviously going to drop in the rankings, as they should. They're a top 5 team. They lost to a good team, but nevertheless, they lost. So was it with Sean Clifford in? No. So do I think that the playoff committee and the ranking committee will be more generous to Penn State for that fact? Yes, especially since Penn State had to lead this game for almost the entire way through until the very end. But with that being said, we have to take this season one game at a time. Doesn't matter if Sean Clifford's coming back next week or if he's coming back 3 weeks from now. We have to keep this season one game at a time. We have big games coming up. We still have Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State on the schedule, right? Rutgers is a program on the rise. We should still beat them. We have them on the schedule too. But we have to treat every opponent like we're playing Alabama, regardless if we have Sean Clifford or not. Because if we go out there underperforming, especially if we have our backup quarterback in there, it is going to potentially lead to a second loss, which this season isn't over yet, But if we get that second loss, we're not going to the Big Ten championship game, and we are certainly not going to the playoffs. That's what we learned in 2016, except we did make the Big Ten championship game because we beat Ohio State. But we didn't make the playoffs because we had 2 early losses. So when it comes to making the college football playoff, is 2 losses good enough? No. And in the Big Ten, is 2 losses good enough to make the Big Ten championship game? Probably not. But my second thing I'd like to talk about today is our backup quarterback. Now, obviously, I'm going to cut the man some slack. He's more of a mobile quarterback. That's fine. Lamar Jackson's more of a mobile quarterback, but I'm not saying he can't throw. Don't get on me, Ravens fans. He can throw the ball very well. I'm just saying he has special mobile talents. And if he sees a lane, he's going to go through it. And I think we can all agree on that. And our backup quarterback, he's the same way. Okay? And that's fine. And like I said, I'm not going to say that we would have won or not won with Sean Clifford in this game. I think the chances of us winning are higher because he's a starting caliber quarterback. He's played with the program and he's been in environments like that before. So were the chances higher if he's in? Yes, absolutely. But would we have won? I can't say that. I'm not going to discredit Iowa's winning. I'm not going to say Penn State definitely would have won. I'm just not one of those type of fans. But it definitely would have helped us. But there's one particular play that I think, a series of plays actually, that I think Sean Clifford would have at least made one of them to continue moving the chains and not get that 4th down interception that ultimately basically ended the game. One of them was a deep route to Jahan Dotson. Do I expect Clifford to make that? No, except is there a chance he could have made it? Yes. Second one, pass, and it was about a 25-yard pass. It was a little bit too high. Would Clifford have made that? Odds are he had a better chance of making it. But this is the play where I really think Clifford would have made it. 3rd down and 10, right? We're backed up inside of our 10-yard line trying to go down and score, or at least get a field goal to take this game to overtime, hopefully, right? Our backup quarterback evaded pressure, which was good. Clifford could have done the same thing potentially. He's not as mobile, but he's still mobile enough that I think he could have done it. But even regardless of that, our backup quarterback saw a receiver open and he overthrew them. He overthrew his receivers at least 75% of the time that he threw the football. Now, do I think that after Sean Clifford evaded pressure, would he have the calmness and collectiveness to sit there and throw a 15-yard pass on target and not super high? Yes. Things happen, but I think Clifford could have made that play to continue on the drive. Now, the other thing I'd like to talk about is that 4th down and 4, the previous drive before for Penn State, before they gave Iowa the football, and then Iowa got a 3-and-out, and they punted it back to Penn State, who just did what I told you they did, and they didn't get a single first down, and Iowa got an interception on 4th down. And do I like the pass that he threw? No. Maybe it was the only thing he saw. But when he looked in front of him, he had our wide receiver that had lined up in the slot open, at least 5 yards down the field, wide open. And he had another person, our tight end, he had him open for a first down. I don't think he would have overthrown that pass simply because it was 5 yards, and especially if it was to our tight end, because if he even did try to overthrow it, he's like, 6'6"? He'd go up, he'd probably be able to get the ball if it was slightly overthrown above his head, especially with nobody around him. But that's just a mistake by a quarterback who was in an environment that he's never been in before, that didn't expect to be in there. And I understand that, even though they're all Division I athletes, and I do think that he should have been able to make that throw on 3rd down and 10 to the open receiver that wouldn't have resulted in a 4th down, which resulted in an interception in the very last drive of the game for Penn State. But do I think that it's something that's a rookie mistake? I mean, you know what I mean by rookie. I don't mean literally because it's college. But yes, that is a mistake by an inexperienced player. I don't know if he thought there was too much pressure, which there wasn't. I believe he would have had time to get the ball off to either of the receivers that were open 5 yards down the field. I just don't think he was simply looking at them. And that's a major error. And I honestly, for a Division I quarterback who's backed up a quarterback like Sean Clifford for the past 2 years, well, he didn't back up Sean Clifford last year. That was Will Levis, but he was still on the roster. I think that he should have been better than what he was, but I'm not going to blame him for some of the things that he did, because I completely understand that. But Penn State, they're 5-1. They were number 4 team in the country. I expect them to probably stay in the top 10. The only way they can make the playoff, I'm telling you right now, they have to win out. All right? biggest game of the year is against Ohio State. They are looking up. They are a lot better than what they were at the beginning of the season. And good for them, Kudos to them for pulling it together. They easily could have just collapsed after that Oregon loss. Not a bad loss. Not, it's not like they lost to Alabama either, but not a bad loss. Understandable loss earlier in the season. Still a painful loss. Definitely hurt them a lot. But nevertheless, Ohio State, they look like the typical Ohio State right now. They haven't played the best teams in the world, but I think they're a better team than what they were at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season with Sean Clifford, I would have said Penn State. I promise, unbiasedly, I would have said Penn State would have beat Ohio State. With the way Ohio State played in that Oregon game, and the way Ohio State played against, say, Tulsa, I think Penn State would beat them with Sean Clifford back then. Now, I am definitely not so sure about that, especially now that it's in Columbus. I think with Clifford, I think we can take care of Michigan and Michigan State, but that's just an estimation. Obviously, we have no idea, and I could be wrong, and there's a chance that I am wrong because they're both good teams, whether you like to admit it or not. Especially with Walker, the running back for Michigan State. He is amazing. I mean, he is amazing. He reminds me so much of Barkley, except he's slightly more of a power back. But back to the point of the video. Penn State has to win out. If they want to make the Big Ten championship game, they're going to have to beat teams like Ohio State and preferably not lose another game, except if they do, it's going to have to be a game that isn't in the conference, or it's going to have to be a game that is in the conference and they have to win out against all of the powerhouses that they have left to play in the conference. But did this hurt Penn State? Yes. Do I still think they can do it? Yes. But it's very frustrating to see some of the reasons why this came to happen. Because, like I said, I'm not saying Penn State would have beat Iowa, but with Sean Clifford, I don't think there's even an argument that they would have had a better chance to do so. And that was proven whenever they had a 14-3 lead. They had all the momentum, except what would happen, especially whenever number 2 was in the game. They had all the momentum, false start, offense, right? That loses the momentum. And that puts the defense on the field for so many times because we keep getting three and outs. It reminds me of the Steelers. I felt like I was watching a Steelers game the second half of the game because Penn State's defense, amazing, spectacular defense, one of the best ones in the country, if you ask me. But with that being said, they did give up that game-winning touchdown. It was blown coverage, and it was something that I feel, could have been executed better by the defensive back. But whenever you're on the field for 80% of the game, and all of a sudden, you're still on the field, you've taken so many snaps. Like, football is a physically demanding sport. If you're on the field, if one side of the ball is on the field much more than the other side of the ball, they're going to get tired. They're going to get fatigued more than the opposing team, which results in better plays and a better probability of the opposing team being able to have a spark against the team whose defense is on the field 80% of the game. That definitely had something to do with the excessive clapping. And it also definitely had something to do with our offense and our quarterback not being able to hit the ball on target. And all of those things just added together, and ultimately that's what led to that touchdown. Our defense folded, and would it have happened it could have happened even if they weren't on the field as much, because it's in Iowa, and Iowa's a great team. But the likelihood of it happening was much, much, much larger whenever they're on the field 80% of the game. You see that with the Steelers defense as well. Not saying they've played great. Last week they played okay-ish, but nothing spectacular. But I think the game against the Raiders is an example. Like, they just couldn't do it anymore. Henry Ruggs toasted him. I get he's fast, but they just were on the field so much. Same thing happened with the Bengals game. Couldn't make a tackle. Why? On the field so much. But at the same time, one of them was in the first quarter, so that was just bad play by the Steelers. Not the point of this video, this Penn State video. But do I think we can pull things together? Yes, but we're going to have to see what Sean Clifford can do and when Sean Clifford is coming back. Because if he's coming back next week, that's awesome. But don't bring him back early, okay? He seems to get injured at the worst possible times. Not going to blame the man for getting injured, don't get me wrong. You can't help that. Except 2 years ago, he got injured against Ohio State when we started to have momentum in Columbus. Do I think we would have won that game? 99% chance the answer to that question is no. But it definitely hurt having to put Will Levis in that game. And then you saw the same thing today. So he just unfortunately seems to get injured. He's somewhat injury riddle, not like, Tyrod Taylor or anything like that. which the lung thing wasn't his fault, don't get me wrong. So your trainer puncturing your lung is definitely not your fault. But, you know, all the other injuries he's had in his career, that's just his body. You know, it's not his fault, but that he is injury riddle. I wouldn't call Sean Clifford injury riddle, but he does get injured somewhat consistently, and they just happen to be in times like if he gets injured against Villanova, still a bad thing, but when it comes to the outlook of the game, it's not that incredibly big of a deal. But whereas it happens against a top 5 team like Iowa, it can definitely impact the flow of the game. Maybe not the outcome 100% of the time, although it could. I'm not saying it did, but it definitely puts your team at a greater risk of losing momentum and therefore losing the game and losing and like the flow of the game that you had before he was injured. But we have to take this season one game at a time. There's no overlooking opponents. There's no thinking that we can't do it or that we're definitely going to do it. We have to go out there with the mentality that we will, except we can't be arrogant with that mentality. We have to keep that mentality right here. We have to have the confidence, except we can't be arrogant. There's a clear difference between having confidence and having arrogance. And that is something that I think you see a lot with the Steelers front office, especially this year. But I hope you don't see that with Penn State, you know? But with that being said, Sean Clifford, if he comes back 3 weeks from now, it is what it is. If he comes back next week, that's great. I just want the man to get better and be healthy because he's been a great quarterback for us so far this year. And he would have made an impact on this game. Can't say we would have won, but our chances of winning, I think it's fair to say would have been higher. Would it have happened? I'm not that type of fan that's going to go out and say, oh, well, if so-and-so didn't get injured, we definitely would have won. No, it's football. You don't know that. But are the chances higher that you would have won? Most likely. Almost every time it is higher, but it's not a guarantee. But yeah, Penn State, they took the L today. Great job to the Iowa Hawkeyes for getting the W. And so far, they look like the contenders who are going to take the Big Ten West unless if things go south. So maybe Penn State will see them again. I'm not sure. But they have to get on their A game now if they want to make the playoff or even just win the Big Ten championship game. I think they can do it, but take it 1 week at a time, guys, all right? Getting here. Penn State on 3. Let's do it, baby, on 6. 1, 2, 3, Penn State. 4, 5, 6, let's do it, baby. All right. I'm yo boy Meatloaf. And I hope you enjoyed this piece of content. And with that being said, Steelers play tomorrow, right? I love watching the Steelers, even though this year it's been kind of ugly. But love you guys for watching the video. Thank you for all the support. Honestly, it means a ton to me. Just to be able to talk to 5 people who view my videos is amazing. But the amount of people that do, even if it's just like 30, it's going to keep growing. I mean, if we keep this up, I'm going to be pretty big one day. You can consider myself as that now if you really want to, but I could be a lot bigger, you know? I could be more known, and that just really means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope that whoever your team was today and tomorrow won, because, I mean, you're all legends. But with that being said, I'm yo boy Meatloaf. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and take care.